I went undercover as a maid in my own penthouse just to watch my fiancé cheat with my best friend. I am the youngest self-made billionaire in the country, but I desperately wanted to test the true loyalty of the man I was about to marry. I secretly hired a fake management company dressed up in a cheap maid uniform and watched as my beautiful gold-digging best friend, Chloe, made her move. Julian and Chloe intimately tangled together on my expensive leather sofa, silently mocking me and holding back cruel laughter as I quietly scrubbed the marble floors right in front of them. They thought I was just a pathetic, invisible servant. The very next morning, Julian handed me a crumpled $20 bill with a toxic smirk, firing me and ordering me to pack my trash and leave his supposedly owned penthouse. I walked out into the freezing, heavy rain. My tears were entirely fake. What those two pathetic traitors didn't realize was that I owned the building, the company Julian worked for, and the very bank accounts they were trying to drain. Tonight, they hosted a lavish engagement party using my stolen credit cards. I didn't return to the building wearing a cheap, dirty apron. I pushed open the grand penthouse doors wearing a flawless crimson designer suit. And I wasn't alone. I was flanked by a massive team of elite federal financial investigators. The lively party music abruptly stopped as the crowd gasped in absolute shock. Julian stumbled backward, his crystal glass shattering on the marble floor as he stared directly into my perfectly focused, dominant eyes. You're the maid? Chloe stuttered, desperately trying to hide behind him as her flawless face turned pale with sheer terror. I'm actually the owner, I whispered softly. I handed the lead investigator the real digital files, fully exposing their massive financial fraud and immediate bankruptcy. Julian's arrogant smile vanished instantly as the federal agents calmly detained him in front of the entire elite crowd. Chloe fell to her knees, sobbing and begging me to let her stay in my luxurious home. I looked down at the people who betrayed me, radiating absolute, untouchable control. You're both fired, I announced, turning my back as they were escorted away. Today, they are sitting in a federal courtroom facing justice, while I rule my empire in absolute peace. If you love seeing toxic gold diggers get exactly what they deserve, hit that subscribe button right now and let me know in the comments below. How would you have tested them? My arrogant billionaire boss forced me to clean up trash at his luxury wedding. He and his cruel bride wanted to humiliate me in front of hundreds of elite guests, but they had absolutely no idea who was actually hiding behind my cheap glasses. I'm Alara, and I am not just a pathetic underpaid corporate secretary. I am an undercover senior federal inspector specializing in taking down corrupt billionaires. For 2 agonizing years, I played the role of a weak, invisible servant. I quietly fetched their coffees, while secretly hacking into their offshore bank accounts. My boss, Julian, had stolen billions of dollars from innocent pensioners to fund his lavish lifestyle. And his beautiful, toxic bride, Isabella, was completely complicit in his massive fraud. On their wedding day, Isabella made it her personal mission to torture me. She deliberately threw a full glass of dark red wine right into my face. "Know your place, garbage," she laughed, while Julian smirked in his custom white tuxedo. I didn't cry, and I didn't run away in shame. I simply wiped the wine from my eyes and reached into my cheap catering apron. I pulled out a glowing red remote control and stared directly into Isabella's soul. With one satisfying click, I completely hijacked the massive LED screens above the wedding altar. Instead of romantic photos, high-definition security footage began playing for everyone to see. It was Isabella, passionately kissing the best man in the bridal suite just an hour ago. The entire ballroom erupted into chaotic gasps as Isabella dropped to her knees in sheer panic. Julian's face turned purple with rage, but his anger didn't last long. Before he could scream, the heavy stained glass doors of the church violently burst open. 30 heavily armed FBI tactical agents stormed down the aisle with their rifles raised. They slammed Julian against the pristine white altar and violently slapped handcuffs on his wrists. Isabella screamed hysterically, begging for Julian to save her, but he was completely paralyzed with fear. I slowly took off my cheap glasses and dropped my stained apron onto the marble floor. Underneath, I was wearing a dangerously sharp, custom-tailored designer suit. The tactical commander walked up to me and saluted perfectly in front of the terrified elite crowd. "Target secured, Chief Inspector," he announced as Julian's jaw dropped in absolute horror. I walked right past the sobbing bride and looked my ex-boss dead in the eyes. Today, they are sharing a concrete prison cell while I hunt down the next billionaire.
No, it can't be you.
Yes, Julian. It's me.
My toxic biological mother cruelly humiliated the love of my life, completely unaware that she was digging her own financial grave. For an entire year, my handsome boyfriend, Julian, pretended to be a struggling, underpaid mechanic who could barely afford rent. My mother, a terrifyingly arrogant and status-obsessed aristocrat, absolutely despised him for being poor and ruining her perfect family image. Yesterday, I brought Julian to our luxury mansion, and she unleashed her absolute worst, most toxic behavior. "Get your filthy, cheap boots off my imported marble floors, you pathetic beggar!" she screamed, violently throwing a stack of cash directly at his face. She actually slapped him, called security, and forced them to drag him out into the freezing heavy rain. "You are marrying the Duke's son tomorrow, and that piece of trash is dead to us," she hissed, locking me in my bedroom. I cried fake tears and fell to the floor. But the truth was, I wasn't heartbroken at all. I was the only person in the entire world who knew Julian's terrifying, hidden secret. The poor mechanic my mother just assaulted was actually the supreme CEO of the Vanguard global banking empire. The very next day, I was forced to stand at the altar in a $1 million white wedding dress next to an arrogant fake groom. My mother was proudly raising her champagne glass to the elite crowd, celebrating her ultimate greedy victory. But suddenly, the deafening roar of a massive military helicopter completely shattered the stained glass windows of the church. The chopper landed violently in the courtyard, blowing away the wedding flowers and sending the wealthy guests into a blind panic. My mother laughed, assuming the royal guards had arrived to arrest a trespasser, but instead, 50 heavily armed elite federal tactical agents marched down the aisle and perfectly bowed to the man stepping out of the helicopter. Julian walked into the church wearing a flawless custom designer suit, radiating absolute, terrifying billionaire dominance. My mother physically stumbled backward, dropping her expensive crystal glass as her face turned completely white with sheer terror. Julian didn't look at her. He walked straight to the altar, handed the federal agents a glowing digital foreclosure document, and took my hand. "I just bought your entire family trust, your mansion, and your massive debts," Julian announced coldly to my horrified mother. The armed agents violently slammed the fake groom against the wall and arrested my mother for decades of massive corporate tax fraud. She collapsed heavily to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably, begging me to save her from total bankruptcy. I elegantly lifted my wedding veil, looked down at her ruined face, and whispered, "Know your place, Mother." Julian and I walked out of the church together, leaving her completely destroyed, bankrupt, and rotting in a federal prison cell. My arrogant husband kissed my best friend right in front of my face, completely unaware that my blindness had already been cured. 3 months ago, a terrible car accident temporarily took my sight, forcing me to rely entirely on my wealthy husband, Julian, and my lifelong best friend, Chloe. I played the role of the helpless, trusting wife, sitting quietly in our luxury mansion. But last week, my vision fully returned. I kept it a total secret, wanting to surprise them, until I walked into the living room and saw the horrifying truth. Julian and Chloe were intimately tangled together on the sofa, silently mocking me and holding back cruel laughter as I blindly tapped my white cane across the floor. They thought I was entirely in the dark. The very next morning, Julian guided my hand to sign what he claimed were routine medical insurance papers. In reality, he was tricking me into transferring my massive family inheritance directly into his private accounts. As soon as the ink dried, they dropped the act, aggressively pushed me out the front doors into the freezing rain, and threw my white cane into the mud. I collapsed on the wet pavement, but my tears were entirely fake. What those two pathetic traitors didn't know was that the documents I signed didn't transfer my wealth. They legally transferred hundreds of millions of dollars in massive corporate debt into Julian's name. Tonight, Julian and Chloe were hosting a lavish penthouse gala to celebrate their newly stolen fortune. I didn't return to the building as a broken, helpless, blind woman. I pushed open the grand penthouse doors, wearing a flawless crimson designer suit, completely ditching my dark glasses. And I wasn't alone. I was flanked by a massive team of elite federal financial investigators. The lively party music abruptly stopped as the crowd gasped in absolute shock. Julian stumbled backward, his crystal glass shattering on the marble floor as he stared directly into my perfectly focused eyes. You can see?" Chloe stuttered, desperately trying to hide behind him as her face turned pale with sheer terror. "I saw everything, and I own everything," I whispered softly. I handed the lead investigator the real digital files, fully exposing their massive financial fraud and immediate bankruptcy. Julian's arrogant smile vanished instantly as the federal agents calmly detained him in front of the entire elite crowd. Chloe fell to her knees, sobbing and begging me to save her from total ruin. I looked down at the people who betrayed me, radiating absolute, untouchable control. "Your reign in the dark is over," I announced, turning my back as they were escorted away. Today, they are sitting in a federal courtroom facing justice, while I rule my empire with perfect vision. If you love seeing toxic traitors get exactly what they deserve, hit that subscribe button right now. And let me know in the comments below. What would you have done to them? The evil stepmother violently fired me from my own mansion, completely unaware of my terrifying true identity. I am Alara, the original billionaire wife and the biological mother of the little girl she was torturing. 3 years ago, my husband's greedy new mistress sabotaged my private jet, leaving me for dead in a fiery crash. But I survived, and I returned to my own home disguised as a pathetic, invisible nanny. For agonizing months, I swallowed my pride and endured the stepmother's brutal slaps and daily humiliations. I did it all just to protect my 5-year-old daughter from her toxic gold-digging claws. But yesterday, Isabella finally crossed the ultimate unforgivable line. She staged a fake kidnapping, brutally hit my little girl, and blamed it all on me so she could steal the entire family trust fund. "Get out of my house, you disgusting trash!" she screamed, throwing my cheap bags into the pouring rain. Julian, my supposed grieving husband, just stood there in his expensive suit and watched her throw me out like an animal. But those pathetic idiots didn't realize I had already planted hidden cameras in every single room of that massive mansion. Today, I didn't return wearing cheap, dirty nanny clothes. I violently kicked down the massive front doors wearing a custom designer power suit, flanked by 30 heavily armed federal agents. Isabella dropped her expensive champagne glass, her perfect face turning pale white in pure, unadulterated horror as she saw my face. You died in that crash," she stuttered, physically stumbling backward and falling to the marble floor. "Did I?" I whispered coldly, elegantly tearing her fake autopsy report into tiny, useless pieces. I snapped my fingers, and the federal agents immediately slammed the screaming stepmother against the cold marble wall. Julian fell heavily to his knees, sobbing pathetically and begging for my forgiveness when he saw the undeniable proof of her crimes on the glowing screens. "I am taking my daughter, my house, and my $50 billion empire back," I announced to the dead silent room. I picked up my crying daughter, held her tight, and watched the FBI drag the screaming traitors away in heavy steel handcuffs.